Hi, my name is Peter Rich. I am a professor of instructional psychology and technology at Brigham Young University. I work with BootUp as an external evaluator to research the effectiveness of their professional development training programs. My own background is I teach courses in instructional design and courses in teaching elementary teachers, pre-service teachers, how to code and how to teach coding in the classroom, which I've done for the past about 15 years, 17 years as a professor. So let's go ahead and start talking about who the teachers are that participated in the Seattle Public Schools program this year, or in the BootUp program this year from Seattle Public Schools. Just to get an idea of kind of who's participating. There is a survey given at the beginning of the first workshop. That same survey is given again at the end of the last workshop. And you can see we had 50 teachers complete the first survey and 45 teachers complete the last survey at the end of the year. So congratulations on getting 90% completion rate, which is great. If you look at the average experience of the teachers, they're about mid-career on average, where you see overall, beginning of the year, reporting that they had about 13 years experience teaching, and almost 10 of those years experience teaching the same grade. One of the things that sticks out to me as we go from pre to post is you lost some youth, actually. So some of the younger teachers appeared to be the ones who didn't complete the survey at the end. And you've got actually some experience teaching coding as well. So teachers already had a few years of teaching coding experience as they reported on this survey. So that's important to keep in mind as we look at the data from pre to post. In terms of their racial and ethnic breakdown, you can see here the vast majority of these teachers reported themselves as being white. We do have some Asian, African American, and other folks who listed themselves in the other category, and just 2 of these teachers reported that they are Hispanic as well. In terms of what their teaching demographics are like, the vast majority of these are classroom teachers. You can see there are some STEM or STEAM teachers. This is the numbers from the post assessment, so you can see who completed this at the end of the year. Mostly classroom teachers and some STEM and technology teachers completed this survey. Also, in terms of demographics, it's interesting to know how they came to participate in BootUp. Was it something they were told they had to do? Was it something they sought out? In this case, the vast majority of these teachers reported that was something they heard about and they asked if they could participate. So this is a willing group of teachers who participated in the BootUp trainings this year. Again, that's important to remember as we move forward looking at the data. So I want to talk about what the teacher experience was like. I like to start off listening to what the teachers say. So one teacher talking about her experience both before and after coding, when I asked her what was her confidence like to teach coding, she said at the beginning she had some apprehension and mild frustration. She's always thought it was worthwhile and important representation and accessibility, but it's overwhelming to be asked to teach coding or even have the opportunity when they're struggling to fit in all the academic content they're supposed to. I think this does a really good job of capturing how teachers often feel, especially generalists, which is the vast majority of the teachers who responded to this survey, when they're asked to teach one more thing. And that's often how they see it, as one more thing. I think it's important then to juxtapose that with her position on teaching coding now. She says she has changed. She still feels it's a big time commitment many teachers don't have, but she does feel equipped to do it using the support they're offered through these programs and these ideas. So getting the training and the confidence to do this can increase teachers' ability to find the time to teach coding in the classroom. That's just one teacher's voice. If you want to hear all of your teachers, you can see these as we look at the before and after. So each row here is the same teacher talking about their confidence to teach coding both before BootUp and after BootUp PD. You can see here I've kind of emphasized or bolded the words that capture their feeling from the before and after. So you've got a teacher going from shaky to a little more confident, apprehensive to I can make this work, I had no experience to I'm more open to it, intimidated to hopeful and positive, no idea to comfortable and confident. You do have a teacher starting out here favorable, and you see this, I've got 4 pages of this, and on each page there's 1 or 2 teachers who indicate they started off from one of these maybe more favorable positions. We see they've also found value in the training. This teacher says she was favorable to now she's learned a lot, she's excited. Limited and boring to now I know how to differentiate and have kids support one another. Meh to wow. Awful to I feel fine and I enjoy it. Too big and too far away to think about coding to I can totally do it. Shaky to more curious. Limited, but open, and now interested to consider how to bring this information to students. Uh, More work than they were prepared to do, to confident that they can integrate it. Intimidated to much more confident. Excited and unsure to confident, curious, and still excited. Good to more positive and more confident. I didn't think I could do it, I can do it. Limited to much more access to specific lessons, programs, etc. Full tool bag. Not very positive to very positive and confident. I didn't think I could do it, I'm excited. Always thought it was an important skill. They still think it's an important skill, but now they have more skills to do it. Okay to more tools in their toolbox. Struggle to more confident. Haven't taught coding for several years. And now they're ready for the fall to start coding and use Vex IQ robots. So a little nervous to confident, very confident and inspired. Not at all interested to I can code in all caps. Apprehensive and anxious, invigorated and excited, non-existent to many exciting possibilities. You can see the changes as we look through all of the things teachers were saying about their experience both before and after they participated in the BootUp training. The teachers who were anxious are now confident. The teachers who thought it was meh now see as well. A lot of teachers talked about this, having a bigger toolbox to teach coding. And those who already were excited or already were confident also expressed interest and increased enthusiasm for teaching coding. So the question then is, what is their experience like teaching coding? How often did they do it during the year? You can see here the majority or the highest number of teachers are teaching it at least regularly, once a week and part-time, so that's a good sign. There's a good portion of teachers that are just teaching it once a month, or also a fair portion teaching it rarely or seldom. I'd love to see them move over into that regularly once a week kind of category. That is where you start to see teachers really start to grow in their coding. That's probably the thing that I see correlates the strongest or predicts the strongest their feelings about coding and their confidence to teach coding is once they have started teaching it at least weekly. So overall, this is looking pretty good in terms of how often teachers teach coding. Love to see the other half of teachers kind of move over to that right half. We also ask how often they integrate it with coding. This is an interesting way of looking at it. There's lots of teachers here and they are generalists, so that's important to keep in mind. I look at the mean, which is the average that most people will think of as the average. And in this case, you're looking at teachers teaching all of the main core subjects or integrating coding with the main core subject at least once during the school year, as long as we look at the mean. Now, the reason I also like to look at the median is because the mean, if somebody teaches especially a lot or especially a little, they tend to pull that mean up or down more than the rest of the teachers in the group. So the median gives all the teachers the same sort of weighting as we look at this. And we look at the median, we don't see that integration happening across the board. So what I would say looking at this is there's a fair number of teachers that are integrating coding with other subjects, but the vast majority of teachers are not getting to that integration point yet. So there's still room for growth despite the excitement, enthusiasm that we saw and heard from teachers at the beginning. It's important to see what teachers feel like they're supported in their community and their network around them. Because they're much more likely to be able to integrate coding when they feel that support. Anything above a 7 is good on a 1 to 10 scale. Typically that's what you're looking for. And they felt highly supported by BootUp and their instructional coach. That's in the good category of 7 to 8. Those are good numbers. Areas where you might want to look at is teachers do feel less supported by the other teachers at their school. So that's something to consider moving forward is how well supported are they by their colleagues. It's not terrible at 6.4, but it's definitely an area to look at. And where they feel the least support, they're below a 6, is the principal, the district, and students' families. And so those are areas that I would examine and see what does that community that's a little bit further away from them and their immediate teaching and classroom, teachers are not feeling that support quite as much. And so there are maybe some community questions to ask, especially administrative questions. Are the principals allowing for and structuring the teacher's time so that they can teach coding lessons in the classroom, and do they feel that same support from the district? Are they hearing the same thing from the district? Right now, looking at these numbers from these 45 teachers, I would say they're not feeling that quite as strongly as they're feeling the immediate support that they feel from BootUp and their instructional coaches. In terms of successes and challenges, I asked teachers just open-ended. Can you tell me what your greatest successes were or greatest challenges were when you're teaching coding? I'm showing the top 3 responses here as I've classified their responses. Overwhelmingly, you can see that teachers describe their biggest success in teaching coding is their students' interest in coding. Teachers say things like what we hear this teacher saying here. It's been great to get to learn a totally different thing than I've ever known or thought I'd be interested in. I've enjoyed watching students become interested in this, seeing students who might not be super engaged in other topics engage in this one. Use productive struggle to learn or grow and find creative solutions and collaborate. That's overwhelmingly where teachers were seeing the most in success. Also, they describe their own ability to start teaching coding as a success as well, and the way that the students are collaborating with each other. As far as their challenges go, their own ability is what teachers describe as their greatest challenge. So you can see here a teacher says, I still feel inadequate in my own understanding. I need to spend more time tinkering with it. And that's kind of that exemplifies the feeling that teachers are talking about when they say that their own ability was the challenge. And then, of course, we always see time as a challenge that teachers report, especially classroom teachers trying to find the time to teach coding. And student ability is also a challenge. Not all students are able to pick up coding as quickly as others, and so sometimes teachers describe that as a challenge that they have to face. At the pre-survey, teachers complete, they answer about 30 questions about their beliefs about coding, and they answer the same 30 questions on the end survey. Those questions load onto these 4, they break down into these 4 categories, right? And so this is a 6-point Likert type scale where the teacher is presented with a statement, and they either disagree or agree with the statement. So 1 is a strongly disagree, 2 is somewhat disagree, 3 is I apologize. 1 is strongly disagree, 2 is disagree, and 3 is somewhat disagree. 4, 5, and 6 is the positive side of that. Somewhat agree, and strongly agree. So you can see teachers started off agreeing that coding was important. Questions like, I believe all students can learn how to code. I believe all students should learn how to code. Coding will be important for their future careers. They started off agreeing with that, and they ended up increasing in that slightly as well. So that is great growth. As you look at that, they're already in that 5 to 6 range, which is what we're aiming for. So that's a good spot. When we look at their computational thinking ability, this is their self-efficacy for thinking computationally themselves. These are questions that have to do with computational thinking that don't involve coding per se. Questions like, I can find patterns in data. I can break down a complex problem into simpler problems. And teachers start off somewhat agreeing on that, and now they've inched up from somewhat agreeing, they're inching towards the agree. Still haven't gotten quite to the agree phase on those questions, but they've demonstrated some growth there. Where we see the most growth is in the coding and teaching self-efficacy. So teachers started off below the somewhat disagree, heading towards the disagree on statements about coding. This is despite the fact that they reported having 2 to 3 years to begin with. In fact, 3 years on that beginning of coding experience to begin with. So that's kind of surprising to see where they were starting off with, even though they've been coding for a few years or teaching coding for a few years on average. Teachers were not confident in their ability to code, and now they're somewhat confident in that ability, right? So they somewhat agree with statements about logical thinking, sequencing, conditional logic, loops, and variables, and so these are specific questions to coding. They somewhat agree. So there's still a lot of room for growth here. I'd love to see that get up to a 5 as they continue to code over the course of this next year. As teachers teach weekly, I think you'll see that growth happen. And then where you see the most growth happen is in the teaching. So teachers somewhat disagreed that they could teach coding to begin with. They were saying they disagreed or somewhat disagreed with statements about knowing where to find the resources to teach coding, knowing how to help students debug their code, and now they didn't just somewhat agree, they are actually closer to agreeing with those statements. So they're sort of halfway between somewhat agree and agree that they can now teach coding. So that's a great growth there. Obviously, still room for growth, but really good growth as you look at where they're at, especially considering they started with some coding experience to begin with. Now we see they've grown and are on the positive side of believing that they can teach coding in the elementary classroom. We also ask them about their attitudes. This is just a simple way of seeing how their confidence has changed. You can see they started off below a 4 on a 10-point scale, and now they've gotten above that 7 range that I say we're always aiming for on a 10-point scale. So that's great growth. Not quite 100%, but almost 100% growth there in their confidence to teach coding. They started off already excited and ended up still excited. As they are looking at their excitement for teaching coding. So this is all really good directions. They didn't have a lot of anxiety to begin with. It was below a 5, and so that's not a lot to begin with, and that decreased even more. So all of these are headed in the right direction. Confidence has really gone up, their excitement has gone up, their anxiety's gone down. Again, as they just teach coding more frequently in the classroom, I think you'll see these things grow even more. So the other part of this evaluation is looking at what their experience was like with BootUp. We ask 5 questions. These are questions that have to do with how much they participated in the trainings and what trainings they attended, as well as questions that are asked of all of the Amazon Future Engineer partners or sponsors, sponsorships, I apologize, programs that they sponsor. And so you can see here, on average, teachers are reported attending 5 in-person trainings and about a half online training. So mostly they were participating in in-person trainings. And if you look at a 5-point scale, how satisfied they were with those, that's a great number, 4.7 out of 5. That's really good. And how likely they are to recommend BootUp to a peer, again, above a 9 on a 10-point scale, so that's wonderful in terms of how they're going to recommend this to others to participate, especially as there are future cohorts of people who might be more hesitant to participate and not as willing as this group was to hear about it and ask if they could participate. So that's a great indicator of how excited they were about this training that they participated in. These last 2 look on a 5-point scale of how satisfied their students were with BootUp, and these are good numbers as well in terms of looking at feeling that their students were satisfied. 4.5 out of 5 is good, and more importantly, whether or not their students feel like they belong in computer science. And so again, that's a good number in terms of their students feeling like they belong from the teacher's perspective. So we asked them to also rate their experience with the different components of BootUp, and on a 1 to 10 scale, you can see all of these things they rated are above a 9 except for one of those things, and that's at an 8.5. So these are all really high ratings of each of the components and the main components of the BootUp experience. So teachers overall really felt like this was an effective experience. They liked each of the components. They've grown in their confidence and in their excitement to teach coding. So everything's headed in the right direction. As they teach coding more frequently, get into the at least weekly teaching of coding, I think you'll see their growth and their self-efficacy for coding and for teaching coding continue to grow as we do this. So hopefully as we move forward, they'll also be able to start collecting student data. That will help us indicate or be able to measure the extent to which this experience that students are participating in changes both their attitudes towards coding as well as their cognitive abilities to think computationally. So that's kind of where we're at for now. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. You can do that through BootUp. And I hope this data presentation has been helpful to you and spurs some important conversations as you continue to promote coding in Seattle Public Schools. Thank you.